Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Buddy, I don't think they can hear me. Oh, I think I'm live. Am I live? Hello, YouTube. Watch me spin around in circles. So I don't have a lot of time today, but I figured I was going on a quick walk with my dog Buddy here, and I talk a little bit about teaching children the mechanisms, right? It's one thing, this is what I tweeted today. I tweeted, it's one thing to tell your children that this institution is corrupt or that institution is corrupt, but it's something else entirely to, it's what happens when you live near an airport. You do a live stream, there's a plane right over your head, and come on, plane. It's one thing to tell your children, oh, the media is corrupt, oh, the banking system's corrupt, oh, the news is corrupt. It's something else entirely to teach them or allow them to study the mechanisms which make corruption inevitable, right? I did my stream the other day on the media, and I went over a lesson plan I had made for high school students. And basically, a short summation of that would be a person who understands where the money comes from, right? You understand that news media, CNN, or really the big 6 corporations that control media, each one of those corporations has a CEO, right? And the CEO is appointed by shareholders. And the shareholders are members of the Council on Foreign Relations. The media CEO, he has to go to the Council on Foreign Relations. He has to kiss the ring. You don't become the head of the CIA. You don't become the head of CNN unless you kiss the ring of the Council on Foreign Relations. So you start to understand, all right, it's not that this journalist is corrupt or this broadcaster is corrupt. It's that the institution itself is inherently corrupt. But that lesson plan was for teaching high school students, right? How do we teach younger children that very same lesson? Now that gets a little bit trickier, but that's where and someone asked me that on my Twitter, which is what sprung me to do this live stream. Here it goes. This is Buddy's spot. Every time I've noticed since we've been doing these live streams together, I get to this spot, and this is where Buddy decides we need to stop what we're doing. Stop what you're doing. Right. Here we go. Give me a second, people. I have to be a good neighbor here. Plus you get this glorious look at my face. All right, here we go. And we are off to the races. Gonna make this a quicker one, so won't be here too long. You just went, Buddy. So, teaching children, I'm talking about young children, the mechanisms that are used to control institutions. So take my book, The Right to Bear Arms, right? The book starts and the roosters report that the roosters wake up in the morning and they report the daily news with cock-a-doodle-doos. And the roosters report that there has been a series of skunk attacks, right? Skunk attacks day and night, skunk attacks left and right. Everywhere you look, someone's getting sprayed with the skunk. And then, of course, the people on the street start, or the animals on the street start chanting, a skunk without stink can do no harm. And the skunks undergo this process in which they are socially shamed, right? And eventually skunks filled with shame give up their stink. And as the book goes along, it includes a false flag attack. So we have Charisma Cat, who is the primary villain in the book. Charisma Cat carries out an attack on a rabbit, right? And we know it was Charisma Cat because if you look next to the picture, you see her little cat paw prints. But what did the roosters report? The roosters reported that the poor rabbit had bear claw marks across her back. And the animals were outraged, so they wanted the bears to surrender their arms, right? And eventually, many of the animals would disarm, right? The lions give up their teeth. A lot of the animals, they give up all their weapons. But of course, anyone who understands history, giving up all of your weapons to the government is a terrible mistake. And by the end of the book, all of the animals are disarmed, except the bears, of course. And that's when Charisma Cat launches her attack. Charisma Cat decides it's time to attack. And she attacks the forest, and sure enough, the animals are disarmed. The forest was conquered in days. A couple of days, she has the whole forest. But finally what happens is she arrives at the bear den. And then a claw, a hook, a bite, and one big bear hook. Charisma Cat was frightened and shook. And she tucked her tail and scurried away. And if you break down the book that way, you say, okay, so what it's revealing is the mechanisms that news media and government use to convince people to disarm, to give up their weapons. But to young children, it's making it relatable, right? A skunk had to give up their stink because they were shamed by everyone saying, oh, well, there's been all these skunk attacks, and there's a false flag attack carried out by Charisma Cat, and all the animals give up their weapons. But then, of course, what happens? The animals are disarmed. That's when Charisma Cat, the archetypal representation of the controllers in government, comes in and they roll up the forest. They roll up the forest. You know what Charisma Cat does. But when she gets to the bear den, the bears still have their arms. They still have their bear arms with their claws and their teeth. And the bears beat Charisma Cat back. And then, to go along with the book, I included a lesson plan which prompts the children to actually investigate the alleged crime scene where the bunny rabbits attacked. So they investigate the crime scene. They see that it's a false flag. It provides historical context to the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. And then I prompt the children to watch a couple of just 2-minute videos on basic historical events. The Holodomor, internment camps in the United States of America, the Trail of Tears. And when you put the book together with the lesson plan, you're painting a picture in a way that is relatable to young children that maybe otherwise wouldn't be relatable. See, if you want to teach them complex concepts, you want to bring it down to a level they understand. And that's the power of teaching these mechanisms through story, right? You teach, if you're ever really any complex concept that's new to even an adult that you're teaching, it's easier to communicate that through story, something relatable. And for children, the animals giving up their claws and giving up their teeth and then being defenseless against another animal is very relatable to the idea, okay, so if you give up your guns, you're very defenseless against government. And once you make that concept clear, you seed that concept in their minds in a relatable way that they could think back and go, oh wait, yeah, I remember that. That was in the story I read. That's the, hey buddy, I'm trying to do a live stream here. You're barking. So now when they think back and say, okay, what happened in the right to bear arms, Cubs to Bears? They go, oh, the animals gave up their teeth and their claws and then they were defenseless against Charisma Cat. But when Charisma Cat got to the bear den, the bears who refused to give up their bear arms, the bears were able to beat Charisma Cat back. So while all the other animals were prisoners to Charisma Cat, the bears were just going on living their life, and you make it very relatable. So this is seeding the mechanisms of reality into the minds of children in a way that's very relatable. Now, when I work with high school students and things of that nature, you can be a lot more in the documents head on, but people ask me, how do you teach children, the little children, these difficult concepts? Well, that's what my books are. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm coming out with a book on the banking system in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And the same concepts, it's a play off of G. Edward Griffin's The Creature from Jekyll Island. But this time, it's written in children's form, and the pigs, the bankers, have a secret meeting and they scheme to take over the banking system. They scheme to take over the piggy bank. And as the book goes on, gold is represented by bee honey gold, honey harvested by bees. And the pigs do all the same things that the bankers do in real life. The money becomes fiat. It's fractional reserve. They're lending out money that they don't actually have, and they're using the same tactics we see used against us, right? Free college for everyone, free food for everyone. Well, how is this paid for? Well, the pigs come into the story and they're free this, free that. But of course, you could imagine what happens by the end of the story. Just like in The Right to Bear Arms, all of the animals that wanted the free stuff, well, in the end, that bill comes to pass. And the pigs wind up confiscating all the stuff they gave to them, except for the bears, again, because anytime, when I write children's stories, I always like to have a very clear compare and contrast. So, whereas all the animals, where is your ritualistic shame muzzle? I must have left it at home. You know, Governor Cuomo doesn't like my kind, and he said that now in New York, we're not allowed to go to bars and restaurants after 10 p.m. Now, I don't go out after 10 p.m. regardless, because I'm a married man, I have a child, my wife is pregnant. It's not exactly something I do, but I'm almost tempted to just start making appearances places, because, you know, I like to show my pretty face. I like the memes that have been going around. It's like people are having Thanksgiving dinner, and Governor Cuomo, like a creepy top half of his face, is peeking into the window. Good idea with the pigs in the book. Yeah, I really enjoy writing these children books, and really what I'm doing is taking psychopathic political parasites. Yeah, but you know what? Don't even worry about these parasites. People give them more power than they actually have. Like, there's been these mask mandates in New York for forever. I don't even know when there's mandates and when there's not anymore, because I don't watch the news. But I mean, for months, New York there has been more coronavirus deaths in New York than anywhere in the world since March. Yeah, well, my rebellious ass has been walking around with no mask everywhere I go. And, you know, I have a basic idea how to defend my rights. So, you know, I go into a restaurant, I go into the store, and they say, blah, 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 blah. And, yeah, I know how to defend myself, so I'll say something like, yeah, well, I don't wear it for health reasons, which isn't a lie, because I don't know about you, but breathing fresh air is pretty important to my health. So I don't wear it for health reasons. And, you know, they might give you a hard time, and you just start talking shit, but never belligerently. You just ask questions like, are you violating my rights? No, sir, there's been a mandate from the government. Are mandates laws? Yeah, mandates are laws. Oh, can you show me the law that states that I can't be here? Oh, are you familiar with the American with Disabilities Act? Oh, sir, do you have a disability? Are you familiar with HIPAA laws? How dare you? How dare you ask me about my medical status? you're legally not allowed to ask. Do I have to take out my phone and start recording now? Are you familiar with the American with Disability Act? Is this how you discriminate against customers? And, you start putting pressure back on them, and what are they going to do? And for anyone who says this stuff doesn't work, as I said, I've been walking around with no mask in New York since March, and no one does shish. I've been thrown out of a few places, but it is what it is. A little chilly out here today, too. Ooh. Not as nice as it was the other days. My hand is freezing holding this phone up to talk to you guys. I'm going to cut this short pretty soon. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was talking about archetypes, right? All right, like when I made The Right to Bear Arms, one of the ways I market the book is I have, X thousand number of followers, not a crazy amount, but on Twitter. So when my new book comes out, I inbox the book to everyone, and most people like it. But The Right to Bear Arms came out, and one person I inboxed it to, because Charisma Cat, right? Charisma Cat is the archetypal representation, among other things, of government and the controllers. And she's also the primary villain in some of my stories so far. She'll actually be making a comeback in 2 books. I'm making 2 books from now. I already wrote it. I'll be releasing a book about teaching children about corporate news and the mechanisms that control it. Little children. So I inboxed my book, and someone writes back to me, I don't think it's appropriate that you objectify women in children's books. I'm like, what is this lady talking about? Well, when Charisma Cat is first introduced in the book, it mentions that Charisma Cat, her beauty was a sight to see. And I guess this person is probably a liberal. In their mind, they're like, oh, why would you objectify? Well, it's not objectifying. Charisma Cat is intentionally beautiful because the way government is rolled out, the control, right? Like, it's always rolled out as beautiful. Like, oh, we're here to help. Oh, you need free college. Oh, we need universal basic income. Free food for everyone. Free housing for everyone. Social security? What do you want, Grammy? You want grandma to be thrown off a cliff? You don't want, right? Government projects itself as beautiful. So Charisma Cat had to be beautiful as an archetypal representation of that. It's actually, and this is what I said to that person, because I can't help myself. Ooh, 6'6". I don't like that. Oh, I don't like that. 5'6". All right, that's better. I shouldn't like that as much, but you guys get it. So, what I wrote back was, beauty is the archetypal representation in the Bible. It is the oldest archetypal representation in the world, right? Lucifer was actually God's most beautiful angel. And again, there's an archetypal reason behind that. Now, don't get me wrong, call me crazy, but I believe in God. But on another level, that's archetypal. It's that the manipulator, the persuader. Barr is a black hat. Oh, please, don't even bother yourself with these people. Bill Barr, he's not going to do anything, right? Here's what I laugh about, right? You want to talk about, like, you'll get like Trump, who, don't get me wrong, I like Trump, but I've long called him the complainer in chief. You'll get like Trump. I'll be like, oh man, they stole this election from me. So let me get this straight. The people that spied on your campaign, right? They spied on your campaign. They used the deep state spy apparatus to spy on your campaign, right? They did a fake dossier, everything, blah, blah, blah. You get it, Russia story. Was anyone prosecuted? Was one person prosecuted criminally? No. Okay. So they spied on your campaign. Then they investigated you for 2 years, and it was proven all false, and no one was prosecuted. Then they tried to invoke the 25th Amendment. No one was prosecuted. Then they tried to impeach you for trying to have Joe Biden investigated for crimes he actually committed, and no one was prosecuted. What is there to stop these people from trying to steal an election against you? If you're going to be weak, then corrupt people are going to smell that weakness and attack like a dog. It's the same thing with, like, this is why I call Trump the complainer in chief. He'll be like, oh man, Twitter's censoring everybody. Look what Twitter's doing. Well, first of all, Twitter has been, and YouTube and all these platforms have been throwing off your supporters, suspending your supporters, abusing your supporters for years. And you never take any serious actions against these companies. You could do that in a legal sense. He could have done something against Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which is the only reason they're able to act the way they act. They have artificial government protection. Basically, all right, Section 230. Buddy, let's go back this way. I want to talk a little more. God, does anyone know what time it is? My wife said I need to be back. One more time around the block. One more time. All right, Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act basically gives social media companies protection from liability for things that people say on their platform. So, like, if you go on Twitter and you libel someone, you go onto Twitter and you write that, I don't know, whatever, Hillary Clinton is a pedophile. I mean, bad example, because that's bad example, because it's true, it's not libel. But you get the point. If you go 2057 in the UK, you Brits. If you go libel someone, they can't turn around and sue Twitter. And the reason these platforms were given that immunity is because otherwise they would have had to act as editors, right? Because they'd be liable, so they'd have to act as editors. So the government said, all right, if you agree not to act as editors, right? If you agree not to screen everything that everyone writes on your platform, we'll give you artificial protection from lawsuit. But now these companies turn around and they abuse that artificial. That's why when anyone says they're a corporation, they could do what they want. They're a corporation with extra government protection, extra artificial government protection. They're not a corporation that can do whatever they want. And anyone who tells you that, like Ben Shapiro, it's because they're gatekeepers. All Trump would have had to do is strike out Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, and that would be it. They wouldn't be able to censor anyone anymore. Bada boom, bada bing. Did he do that? Nope. Complainer in chief. Complainer in chief. Got the plane going overhead. Hold on. Probably going to the UK. Even if he didn't want to take legal action, okay, legislative action, whatever, executive orders. You know what I'm saying. If he didn't want to do that, at the very least, at any time in the last 4 years, Trump could have completely bucked Twitter, right? He could have woke up one morning, deleted his account, alpha move. Big time alpha move. Deleted his account and set up an account on Gab or whatever platform it might be. And instantly overnight, Twitter wouldn't have been the big dog in town. Because all of America would have followed him suit. Did he do that? Complainer in chief. Corporate media. Fake news, fake news, fake news. I don't see alternative news options getting one-on-one interviews in the White House for the last 4 years. So, like, when I see that, they're stealing the election, well, yeah, I mean, that's how corrupt people respond to weakness. So, William Barr, William Barr is going to do this, William Barr is going to do that. William Barr hasn't done jack-ish, and he's not going to. He's a corrupt attorney general who was close to Bush and his regime, which, if you want to talk about his complicity, America's been in the Middle East for the last 20 years, and they're not leaving anytime soon. So don't even worry about these people. Homeschool, raise your children, pray to God, have big families, build communities, right? People are like, oh no, I'm going to get fired if the B system doesn't like what I say. Well, if you have a big community that trusts each other, maybe you find that at a church, wherever you find it, when the B system gets you fired because they don't like what you have to say, someone could just give you a job. Man, when this country was founded, rugged individualism. I mean, you had people get on a boat. There's probably a 50% chance that they would die on the boat ride. Sail across an ocean, unsettled land or land that was settled but with hostile natives. Hostile natives, they come here, no infrastructure, no anything, United States of America. They grow their food, they grind, they crush, they conquer their fears, and they establish a new world. And they did that because they wanted to get away from government. But man, a couple of centuries, people have been lulled to sleep by victory. Like, oh man, the government's doing this, the government's doing that. Government isn't doing shit. Oh, government's making me wear a mask. I haven't worn a mask. I'm in the heart of the beast. Haven't worn a mask. Oh, government's making me shut down my business. Well, have you studied legal remedies to shift liability back on the people trying to bully your business? I haven't shut down my business. Give it's online, so that's like a smart-ass thing to say, but you get the point. Actually, no. Allegedly, I have held events. Allegedly, I have held educational events during a pandemic that I'm not supposed to do, and no one wore masks, allegedly. So, we have the power. And never let them convince you that they have the power. And everything that happens is a result of our choices. And right now, my next choice is I gotta go home and play with my boy. Later.